The Thalen had once been proud. Their civilization sparkled among the stars, their cities floating in orbit like jewels of living light. They were builders, explorers, artists, and warriors all at once. Every world they touched thrummed with life. Every ship they launched carried hope and ambition. They were admired by neighboring star systems, and their fleets patrolled the cluster like guardians of peace. Children learned the stories of their ancestors with shining eyes, dreaming of the day they would travel beyond their homeworld. But the stars are not always kind. It started with whispers of war. A rival empire, envious and cruel, struck at the Thalen colonies far from the capital. At first, the Thalen thought they could defend themselves easily. They had done it before. But the war came faster, harder, and more merciless than they had ever imagined. Worlds fell in flames, fleets shattered into drifting wreckage, and the pride of the Thalen became ash in the vacuum of space. The allies they had trusted turned away, leaving them to fight alone. Betrayal became a bitter taste in every mouth, and grief sank deep into the hearts of the survivors. For the first time in their long history, the Thalen were homeless. Ships became their only homes. Great halls that had once hummed with music and debate now creaked and groaned in silence. The children slept on cold metal floors, the elderly huddled in corners, and the air smelled faintly of fear, smoke, and desperation. Every day was a struggle to find food, water, and warmth. Every night the stars mocked them with their brilliance. They had once reached for the heavens with pride, but now the heavens only watched them suffer. Among the Thalen there were stories to remember and stories to forget. The old spoke of the glory that had been, of cities that floated like clouds of crystal, of fleets that shone like the sun. They told these stories to the young, not as lessons, but as memories of a world that no longer existed. The children listened with wide eyes, imagining wonders they would never see, feeling the weight of loss before they even understood it. And yet, amid all the pain, hope lingered. It was fragile, almost invisible, like a single spark in the darkness of a collapsed star. Some Thalen whispered of distant worlds where they might find sanctuary. Others prayed to the old gods of the cosmos, asking for mercy, for guidance, for a place to call home once again. But for centuries, the galaxy answered only with silence. Doors remained closed, stations refused docking, and the wandering fleets became ghosts. The Thalen were a people erased, invisible to the powers that had once acknowledged them, forgotten by all but themselves. In these long years, divisions formed. Some Thalen wanted to fight, to strike back at the galaxy that had abandoned them. They argued that survival was not enough. They needed revenge. Others believed that survival itself was an act of courage, that vengeance would only doom them further. Arguments became fights, fights became grudges. And yet, even in their discord, they stayed together. For despite everything, the Thalen knew one truth. Alone, they could not endure, but together, even battered and broken, they still had a chance. It was during one long, lonely drift through the outer rim that something unusual happened. A small blue planet appeared on the edge of their sensors, not magnificent or threatening, not wealthy or militarized. It was alive. Its surface shimmered with green forests, vast oceans, and swirling clouds. The Thalen scanned it carefully, scanning for danger. Nothing, just a quiet, distant world that seemed welcoming. Some laughed at the thought of it. "It is too small," one elder said, "too weak. It cannot offer us sanctuary. It is nothing to the galaxy." But others were silent, staring at the planet with eyes that had seen too much emptiness. It was the first sign of hope in centuries, a place where perhaps they could rest, eat, heal, and maybe even live again. They did not know if the humans, its strange, unknown inhabitants, would welcome them. They did not know if they would be rejected or worse. But hope, however fragile, was hope nonetheless. And so, for the first time in centuries, the Thalen prepared to leave their endless drifting. They repaired what little they could of their fleets, patched the hulls of their vessels, and stored enough supplies for the journey. There were tears in the eyes of the young and old alike, for leaving meant risk, and risk meant uncertainty, but to stay drifting forever was death. To go was life, and even in the darkest night, life demanded a choice. The children pressed their small hands against the observation windows, staring at the blue planet, imagining what it would feel like to touch water again, to run on solid ground, to laugh without fear. The elders murmured prayers to the winds of space, prayers that the planet's people would understand. The Thalen, cast out by the stars, would soon meet a world that had never heard of them. For the first time in generations, the exiles of the sky felt a heartbeat of something new, hope that the stars might not have abandoned them entirely. The Thalen approached Earth slowly, their battered fleets like shadows drifting through the sunlit void. The planet below shimmered in blues and greens, a jewel of life spinning silently in space. From orbit it looked fragile, almost delicate but alive. This world had never known them. It had never even heard of their suffering. Yet somehow in the Thalen hearts it felt like a final chance at refuge after centuries of being hunted and ignored by the galaxy. Inside the ships, the Thalen were tense. Children clutched their parents' hands, whispering questions about what awaited them. Elders held their heads high, masking fear with dignity. Every sensor scan, every cautious maneuver was a prayer. They did not know if this planet's inhabitants would open their gates or their weapons. They had been denied mercy too many times. Rejection was the norm. Hostility the expected. Hope was dangerous, it could be broken so easily, but they clung to it nonetheless. On Earth, the first sight of the Thalen ships caused a storm of reactions. Humans looked up at the skies with astonishment. Their instruments detected dozens of massive alien vessels approaching, old yet intact. Some had scars from battle, blackened metal plates, missing panels, and glowing hulls patched with makeshift repairs. There was fear. Could they be invaders, raiders, refugees, or something far more dangerous? The leaders of Earth convened quickly. Scientists, military commanders, and diplomats crowded around communication consoles. Some argued for extreme caution, recommending immediate defense measures. Others suggested evacuation of major cities near landing zones. But in the midst of debate, the first transmissions came. The Thalen spoke, their voices trembling but clear through translators. "We are the forgotten. We have nowhere to go. We do not wish to fight. We seek only rest, shelter, and safety. Will you turn us away as the others have?" The words struck deep. They were simple, honest, and human in their own way, despite being spoken by an alien tongue. Some humans frowned with suspicion. Perhaps it was a trick. Perhaps a trap. But others could feel the weight of centuries behind those words, the exhaustion, the sorrow, the endless wandering through dark space. In the council chambers, debates raged. "We don't have the resources," one official said. "Our cities are struggling. Our populations are recovering from disasters. We cannot feed an entire alien fleet," another voice countered, steady and firm. "We do not know what they can offer, but we know who they are. Survivors. They are asking for mercy, and we are capable of giving it. How can we call ourselves human if we turn them away when they are at their lowest?" Outside, the Thalen waited, drifting silently. Children pressed against the observation glass, their glowing eyes wide. They whispered prayers, not for victory or riches, but simply to be allowed to live. Their elders paced the corridors, checking instruments and murmuring ancient songs, trying to calm their restless hearts. These songs had once echoed across thriving cities, now reduced to whispers in empty halls. After hours of debate, the decision came. Not by accident or fear, but by choice. The Earth leaders chose compassion over caution. They chose hope over hesitation. Yes, the vote echoed. A single word, simple yet powerful, that resonated through both human and Thalen hearts. Yes, you may come. Yes, you are welcome. Yes, you are not alone. The Thalen wept quietly. Some of the young had never seen tears before. Their parents held them close, whispering words of comfort in their musical tongue. The fleet shuddered with relief as it prepared for descent. Engines hummed, thrusters fired cautiously, and the first of the Thalen ships entered Earth's upper atmosphere. On the ground, humans watched from observation posts and broadcast towers. The ships were immense, dark silhouettes against the sky. Slowly they descended, gliding over oceans and continents, avoiding cities at first. Earth's air traffic controllers and defense systems monitored closely, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. But nothing did. The Thalen were careful. Every maneuver was deliberate, cautious, and respectful. As the first ships landed in prepared zones, humans and Thalen finally saw each other face to face for the first time. The Thalen were unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. Tall, graceful, and fragile-looking, yet their essence radiated endurance. Their skin shimmered faintly in the light, and their eyes glowed softly, a reflection of the stars they had traveled under for centuries. Humans stared, unsure whether to be afraid or to offer their hands in friendship. The children approached first, curious and brave. Small hands reached out to touch alien fingertips, and laughter, Soft, cautious laughter echoed across the landing fields. Elders of both species bowed their heads in respect, unsure of words, but understanding the shared moment of relief and humanity. For the Thaylen, this was more than arrival, it was rebirth. Their ships were broken, their bodies tired, their hearts heavy. Yet in this moment, on a small blue world that had not known them, they felt something almost forgotten: safety. They felt the possibility of family, of community, of home. And for the humans, it was a revelation. These beings, once considered distant and alien, were no longer mysterious threats. They were survivors, kindred spirits in a galaxy too often cruel. They had suffered, wandered, and been abandoned, and now, Earth had chosen to give them a chance. As night fell across the landing zones, humans and Thaylen alike gathered around fires, shared meals, and whispered stories. The sky above still held unknown dangers, but for the first time in generations, the Thaylen could rest. Their children slept in warmth. Their elders sighed with relief, and a fragile hope began to grow in the hearts of both species. The galaxy might have abandoned them, but here, on Earth, they were welcomed. And that welcome was worth more than all the stars they had once called home. The Thaylen's arrival was only the beginning. Earth's people worked tirelessly to transform barren landing zones into temporary shelters. Tents became homes, hangars became schools, and open fields turned into gardens. Every human hand that reached out to help carried a message louder than words. You are not alone. You are welcome here. The Thaylen were cautious at first. They had been betrayed too many times, abandoned too often to trust quickly. Their eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light of shelters, scanned every human gesture. Were these people sincere? Or was kindness a mask for cruelty, as it had often been before? Slowly, day by day, trust grew, fragile but resilient. Children learned to play again. The first games were awkward. Humans and Thaylen running together, laughing in two different languages, trying to understand each other. The Thaylen children discovered mud for the first time, water that cooled their small hands and sunlight that warmed them without fear. Their laughter echoed across the fields, piercing centuries of silence. Humans watched with wonder, some wiping tears from their eyes, for the sound of innocent joy was rare and precious. Elders, too, began to heal. The old songs that had been whispered in the hollow corridors of ships now filled large human halls. Humans listened with fascination as the Thaylen sang of stars and homeworlds, of ancestors long gone and of the grief of loss. Though the humans could not understand every word, they understood the emotion, the deep, aching longing for a place to belong. And in that understanding, they offered more than shelter. They offered respect. Yet living together was not without friction. Some humans feared the Thaylen, worried about sharing resources, about cultural differences, about misunderstandings. Some Thaylen, proud and wounded, struggled to accept help, seeing it as charity rather than friendship. Words were spoken in anger. Fists were shaken, doors slammed. But every argument ended in compromise, every fear addressed with patience. Slowly, humans and Thaylen learned the delicate art of coexistence. They learned that home was not only a place, but a bond of trust. The daily routines of Earth became intertwined with the rhythms of Thaylen life. Children attended school together, learning each other's languages and stories. Markets and kitchens were shared, where strange fruits and alien delicacies were offered and tasted with cautious curiosity. Nights were filled with quiet conversations under starlit skies, humans and Thaylen speaking softly, sharing dreams they had long believed impossible. In the cities, humans marveled at the Thaylen's knowledge. Their technology was old but sophisticated, their memories of star systems and survival strategies invaluable. The Thaylen taught humans ways to repair, to conserve, to innovate. In return, humans offered knowledge of Earth's plants, animals, and ways of life. Together, they discovered solutions neither could have found alone. The planet itself seemed to pulse with life, approving of this fragile unity. Even with these small triumphs, there were challenges. Some Thaylen could not sleep on solid ground after years in floating ships. Some humans struggled to accept beings who looked so different, whose skin shimmered faintly in moonlight, whose eyes seemed to hold the cosmos. Misunderstandings arose, and the world sometimes felt smaller than it was. But through every struggle, compassion prevailed. Humans showed patience, Thaylen showed humility, and gradually the walls of fear and shame began to crumble. The children became the bridge. When Thaylen children giggled with humans over a shared game or a clumsy attempt at language, Adults began to soften. They began to see each other not as strangers but as companions in a shared journey. The young had no memory of betrayal, no sense of centuries-long exile. They only saw possibility, hope, and friendship. And from that innocence a new culture began to emerge, built on empathy rather than conquest, on sharing rather than fear. At night, the elders gathered quietly. They spoke of the stars they had left behind, of the fleets that had been destroyed, of worlds that had turned away, and then they spoke of Earth. They marveled at the humans who had seen them not as threats or burdens, but as fellow beings deserving care. Some wept silently, finally feeling the weight of sorrow lift from their hearts. Others hummed the songs of old, mixing their music with the soft wind of Earth, feeling for the first time in centuries that their voices belonged somewhere. For the humans, too, this was transformative. They had always been proud, always resilient, but the Thalan's presence reminded them of a deeper truth, that true strength is not measured by weapons or wealth, but by the courage to show kindness when it is not required. They had chosen to shelter strangers, and in doing so, they became part of something larger than themselves, a living testament to compassion, courage, and hope. And so, life continued imperfect and beautiful. The Thalan slowly rebuilt not just their bodies but their spirits. They learned to laugh without fear, to dream without hesitation, to imagine a future where the stars might not hate them. Humans learned patience, humility, and the beauty of connection beyond borders, species, or history. Together they carved out a fragile peace, a home stitched together from courage, love, and determination. The galaxy beyond still watched. Some whispered in disbelief, some with malice, and others with envy. They had expected the Thalan to fade into nothingness, to be crushed by exile and despair. But instead, the Thalan thrived, not because of weapons or fleets, but because humanity had extended a hand when none other would. And in this fragile harmony, both humans and Thalan felt the first real promise of something extraordinary, a home not just on a planet, but in each other's hearts. Earth had become a sanctuary, a place where the Thalan could finally breathe without the crushing weight of exile pressing down on them. The blue planet shimmered with life, the sun casting gentle light over fields and cities where humans and Thalan walked together, laughed together, and rebuilt lives. But beyond Earth's orbit, the galaxy stirred uneasily. For centuries, the Thalan had been forgotten. Their fleets destroyed, their voices silenced, their names spoken only in whispers of pity or disdain. But now they existed again, not in shadows but in full, undeniable presence. And worse, they had found allies in humans, a species dismissed by older civilizations as weak, naive, or reckless. Whispers spread through the galactic channels. "The Thalan have not perished," said some voices, trembling with disbelief. "They have taken refuge among humans." Others spoke in anger. "The humans meddle where they do not belong. By sheltering these exiles, they challenge the natural order. This cannot go unpunished." On Earth, these whispers did not reach directly. The people lived their fragile peace, tending to gardens, schools, and shelters. But some humans had connections beyond the planet. Explorers, traders, and observers who glimpsed the subtle stirrings of the wider galaxy. They began to warn. The Thalan's survival might provoke more than curiosity. It might provoke fear and envy, and with fear and envy came danger. The Thalan, for their part, were cautious. They remembered all too well the betrayal of old allies, the cold indifference of neighboring worlds, the sharp claws of empires that had cast them into endless drifting. They trained quietly, repaired what remained of their ships, and shared with humans knowledge of star systems, of tactics, of survival in the void. Though their hearts longed for peace, they knew the galaxy might not allow it. Rumors spread like wildfire, fleets were being mobilized, distant councils whispered of intervention, and some older races began sending envoys with veiled threats. The galaxy feared the example Earth set, that even the weak, even the underestimated, could shelter and empower the broken. If humans could protect the Thalan, what else might they do? The thought alone was unsettling to empires built on centuries of dominance and fear. On Earth, the Thalan leaders convened with human authorities. Their voices were quiet but firm, full of the knowledge of pain and the courage of survival. "We are grateful," one elder said, "but we are not naive. The galaxy will not forgive our return lightly. They will test your kindness with fire. We must prepare, or the sanctuary you offer may not last." Human leaders listened carefully, hearts pounding with both fear and determination. They had chosen mercy, but mercy was never simple. Protecting the Thaylen meant taking a stand, not just for them, but for what humanity itself believed. Some counselors argued for caution, suggesting they sever all contact with alien civilizations, hide their presence, and hope the galaxy forgot them. Others insisted on preparation. If the galaxy came with fire, Earth and its allies would meet it with unyielding strength. Meanwhile, the Thaylen adapted quietly. Their children played in the fields and parks, laughing without worry, while elders taught humans old songs and stories of endurance. Their presence, though peaceful, was a quiet defiance. They had survived centuries of rejection and exile. They had endured hunger, fear, and betrayal. And now they were alive, among a people who had chosen to see them not as burdens but as equals. But the galaxy does not forgive so easily. From the void beyond, scouts began to watch Earth. Ships glided through distant systems, scanning, reporting, calculating. The Thaylen fleets were small and aged, but together with human ingenuity, they could pose a subtle threat, a reminder to the galaxy that the forgotten could rise again. Some civilizations whispered warnings. Others plotted. They feared that if Earth and the Thaylen were allowed to flourish, the delicate balance of power could shift, and no empire would remain unchallenged. On Earth, the Thaylen felt it. Not immediately, but in subtle signs. Distant transmissions, reports of unusual activity near the outer planets, messages intercepted by human scouts. The warning was clear: peace was temporary and sanctuary could be fragile. For the first time, the Thaylen felt a pang of the old fear, the one that had haunted them through centuries of exile. And yet, there was courage too. Humans did not waver in their resolve. They reinforced shelters, trained fleets, and worked side by side with Thaylen engineers and strategists. Every step of preparation became a symbol of solidarity. Every shared meal, every song, every laugh was a declaration: we will not abandon each other. In quiet moments, Thaylen and human children watched the stars, imagining what might come. Will they come for us? A small Thaylen girl whispered, eyes wide with fear. A human boy nodded gravely. Maybe, but we won't run. Not this time. That simple determination carried weight beyond words. It was a promise that even if the galaxy demanded fear and submission, Earth would not bend. It was the first glimmer of true defiance in centuries for the Thaylen, and it strengthened the bond between the two species. The whispers of fear from the stars grew louder each day. The galaxy was watching, but on Earth, amid the gardens, schools, and quiet laughter, humans and Thaylen were learning something important. Strength is not only in weapons, speed, or numbers. Strength is in compassion, trust, and the courage to stand together, even when the whole universe seems ready to tear you apart. And so, under the watchful eyes of distant civilizations, the sanctuary on Earth held firm, not yet tested by fire, but already a beacon of what the galaxy feared most: that mercy, alliance, and hope could be stronger than fear, cruelty, or centuries of exile. The warnings came slowly at first, soft signals from the distant stars, whispers of unease, transmissions intercepted by Earth scouts, and unusual fleet movements far beyond the outer planets. But soon the signs became impossible to ignore. The galaxy, long indifferent to the exiles, was now moving with intent. The Thaylen survival, aided by humanity, had caught attention, and not the kind that brought hope. Human leaders convened in the council hall, a modern space above Earth's tallest city, where the blue sky could still be seen beyond the great windows. Advisors spoke quickly, voices laced with concern and fear. "They will come," one said. "Allies we thought dead, rivals we hoped indifferent. They will arrive with fleets large enough to crush us." Others argued with hesitation. "We could turn them away," a military strategist suggested. "Push the Thaylen back into the void. Protect Earth first. We do not have the resources for open conflict." But the council paused when they looked at the faces of the Thaylen who had come with them. Families now lived in the shelter cities. Children ran through parks. Elders tended gardens and shared knowledge. They had seen suffering beyond imagining, endured betrayal and loneliness for centuries. And now, for the first time, they felt the warmth of kindness, the strength of a hand offered without question. A human diplomat, quiet but resolute, spoke the truth that many could feel but not say. "If we abandon them now, if we send them away, We become no better than the galaxy that cast them out. We betray not just them but ourselves and everything humanity stands for. Mercy may be dangerous, but mercy is also strength. The words hung in the chamber like sunlight-piercing storm clouds. Some leaders shivered at the thought of war, of defiance against powerful civilizations. Others felt something deeper, a stirring of pride, a surge of hope, and a reminder of who they were. Humanity had survived countless hardships, endured wars, diseases, and famine. They had risen again, not because the universe was merciful, but because they refused to surrender. The council vote was tense, hours stretching into days as arguments swirled. Some feared loss, some feared the unknown. But the young voices, the diplomats, scientists, and strategists who had seen the Thaylen children laughing in sunlit fields, reminded everyone why they were there. They reminded them that strength was not measured only in fleets or weapons, but in courage, compassion, and choices made when the odds seemed impossible. Finally, the decision was made. Humanity would not cast the Thaylen out. Humanity would stand by them. Earth would not yield to threats, nor would it betray the fragile hope that had begun to bloom. The words were simple, but their weight was immense. We will protect them. If the galaxy demands their exile, we will refuse. Earth will be a home to the Thaylen. Together, we will endure. When the decision was announced to the Thaylen, tears flowed freely. They had lived for centuries without a word like that. A promise, a commitment, an embrace of their existence. Children clung to their parents, laughing and crying in confusion and joy. Elders bowed, some kneeling, offering prayers of gratitude to unseen gods and to the humans who had chosen to stand by them. Yet joy was tempered by understanding. They knew the galaxy would not ignore such defiance. They had survived exile, but this time, they would not face the void alone. Humanity, untested in galactic warfare, was now their shield. And for humans, the choice carried its own risk. An entire planet, unprepared for the fire of alien fleets, had now taken a stand against the wider universe. Preparations began immediately. Earth's engineers worked with Thaylen tacticians, blending human innovation with Thaylen experience of interstellar war. Fleet designs were studied and upgraded, defensive systems strengthened. Citizens were trained in emergency protocols. Every action was a message, both to the Thaylen and to the galaxy. Earth would not back down. In quiet moments, the Thaylen reflected on the humans' choice. They had expected fear, doubt, or betrayal. Instead, they found courage, empathy, and an unwavering moral compass. These humans, an elder whispered to another, they fight not because they must, but because they believe in us. That is something even the greatest fleets in the galaxy could not teach. Human children, unaware of the dangers above, continued to play alongside Thaylen children, running through the streets and gardens. Their laughter was defiance itself, a declaration that life would go on no matter the threats. And in the eyes of both species, hope burned brighter than any star in the night sky. For the leaders, the choice was heavy with responsibility. They had chosen compassion. On overcaution, hope over fear, they had chosen the path that might lead to conflict, perhaps even destruction. But in that choice, they discovered a truth often forgotten. Bravery is not always about winning battles. Sometimes it is about standing for what is right, even when the universe itself seems ready to punish you. As the sun set over Earth, casting long shadows across the growing shelters and cities, humans and Thaylen alike gathered in quiet solidarity. The planet was peaceful, but the galaxy beyond was not. Yet in that moment it did not matter. They had made their choice. They had chosen to protect, to love, to endure, and whatever storms awaited them, they would face them together. The dark choice, the one that demanded courage in the face of fear, had been made. And in that choice, the bond between humans and Thaylen was sealed. Not by treaties, not by laws, but by shared hearts and unwavering hope. The galaxy could threaten, it could warn, it could even attack. But Earth and its exiles had found something stronger than fear. They had found loyalty, compassion, and the courage to stand together when the stars demanded otherwise. And that courage would change everything. The galaxy had warned, whispered, and threatened. But warnings became reality when the first alien fleets appeared near the outer planets. They were massive, polished, and bristling with weapons, fleets designed to intimidate, to conquer, to erase. The Thaylen's old ships, patched and worn, trembled at the sight. The humans' newly built fleets, though modern, were untested in the cruel void of space. Yet both species stood together, shoulder to shoulder, hearts united against the oncoming storm. The first clashes were chaotic. Alien cannons fired across dark voids, lasers slicing through the blackness like angry lightning. Explosions shook the hulls of human and Thaylen ships alike. Smoke and fire filled the observation windows. Children aboard the Thaylen ships were moved to safe quarters, while elders coordinated strategies that had been passed down for centuries. Every move was calculated, yet every heart beat with fear and hope intertwined. Humans learned quickly. They adapted to Thaylen tactics, combining raw ingenuity with the wisdom of a species that had survived centuries of war. Every damaged ship became a lesson. Every narrow escape taught them new ways to maneuver. The Thaylen, in turn, marveled at the humans' determination, the courage to face a vast, hostile fleet with nothing but strategy, creativity, and unyielding will. On Earth, the skies above the launch platforms were filled with activity. Ships rose from hidden docks, engines blazing as they joined their allies in orbit. Humans watched monitors with clenched fists, coordinating every movement with the Thaylen's centuries-old knowledge of space combat. Every command was spoken with precision, every calculation a prayer that this fragile unity could withstand the coming storm. The battle raged for days. In the void, ships danced a deadly ballet. The alien fleet expected quick victory, assuming that the exiles and their inexperienced human allies would crumble. They were wrong. The Thaylen fought with ferocity born of desperation, refusing to let centuries of exile end in annihilation. Humans flew beside them, piloting ships with courage that defied expectation, improvising tactics that even the oldest galactic commanders would admire. Amid the chaos, acts of heroism shone brightly. A young human pilot, barely out of training, guided a damaged Thaylen ship through a deadly corridor of lasers, saving hundreds of lives. An elder Thaylen strategist sacrificed their vessel to draw enemy fire away from a group of children's transports, ensuring that the next generation survived. Across the battlefield, small victories mounted, each one a testament to the bond between the two species. But it was not just skill that won the day. It was heart. Human laughter, even in the midst of battle, echoed through comm channels, carrying hope to the Thaylen crews. The Thaylen's calm, disciplined presence reminded humans of what was at stake and of the strength found in unity. They were no longer merely survivors. They were defenders, a living declaration that those cast out by the stars could fight back and endure. Losses were inevitable. Ships were destroyed. Brave souls were lost. The cries of those aboard shattered vessels echoed in the memories of those who survived. Yet even in mourning, humans in Thaylen found resilience. They repaired, regrouped, and returned to the fight, refusing to surrender to the fear that had once stalked the exiles through centuries of wandering. The turning point came when a Thaylen commander devised a risky maneuver, using the asteroid fields near Jupiter as cover. Humans followed without hesitation, trusting the alien leader who had once been a stranger. Together they struck the enemy's flagship, shattering its shields and scattering its fleet. The enemy had expected an easy campaign, but what they faced instead was strategy, courage, and unity they could not anticipate. Panic spread through the alien ranks, their precision unraveling under the combined might of Thaylen knowledge and human ingenuity. When the final waves of the enemy retreated, the vacuum was still. The battlefield was littered with wreckage, yet survivors cheered, both human and Thaylen. Children clung to their parents, elders embraced, and for the first time in generations, the Thaylen could breathe freely, not just because of safety, but because they had fought and won not through numbers, but through courage and solidarity. On Earth, celebrations were quiet but profound. The planet had faced a threat that many believed insurmountable, and together humans and Thaylen had endured. The people knew the galaxy still watched, still feared, still whispered threats in the dark. Yet here on this small blue planet, the exiles had found strength, and humanity had proven that even the underestimated could stand as giants among the stars. The Thaylen children ran through parks once more, their laughter mingling with human voices, carrying a new message across Earth. The galaxy could threaten, but they would not bow. The elders sang their old songs under starlit skies, melodies now infused with hope and the knowledge that they were no longer alone. Humans joined them, adding voices of encouragement and unity, creating a chorus that resonated beyond the planet. as if announcing to the universe that something remarkable had been forged here. In the quiet that followed, both species reflected. They had survived, yes, but more importantly, they had learned something vital. Courage, compassion, and collaboration could defy the universe itself. They had turned exile into sanctuary, weakness into strength, despair into hope. And through it all, they had discovered that the bonds formed in fire are unbreakable. The galaxy might have expected the Thaylen to vanish, humans to retreat, and hope to die. But Earth had shown them something the stars had long forgotten, that even those cast out, even those underestimated, could rise together. And in the silence of space, under the watchful eyes of distant civilizations, humanity and the Thaylen celebrated a truth that no fleet, no empire, no decree could ever erase. They had fought. They had survived. And together, they had become something far greater than either species alone.